I have so many clients that come to me, and it's just like this helpless, like, relationship with themselves, and trying to so hard control, like use food as a control. And it's the more you control it, it's almost kind of like, when you take a key that doesn't fit in a hole and you're just like trying to like put it in, and you're trying to like make it fit, but it's not fitting, and you're getting frustrated, like, why isn't this fitting? And then you realize, like, oh, this is the wrong key. Well, that's how I kind of see it, is like, you think in your head, a lot of these, all of us at one point have in our head this kind of blueprint of things that people have told us and the way that we think things should go. And then when we try it, it's not working. It's just like, I'm a failure, or why can't I make this work? But really, you just need a different key.
That was meditation teacher, yogi, and health coach, Lauren Bongiorno. And this is episode 7 of the Bravest Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Craig, and welcome to another episode of the Bravest Podcast. This is episode number 7, and I think you're really going to get a lot out of this one. Recently, I had an opportunity to sit down in New York City with Lauren Bongiorno. Now, Lauren is a meditation teacher, she's a yogi and a health coach, and she's contributing to the world in so many different ways. While she spends a good amount of her energy coaching clients with type 1 diabetes to live healthier and happier lives, she's also a very busy entrepreneur who's working on some next-level projects that will allow her to make an impact on even more people than her day-to-day schedule allows. Now, in this episode, Lauren and I talk about her diagnosis with diabetes at the age of 7 and how her parents were instrumental in helping her develop a high level of confidence despite that diagnosis. We also talked to her about her Division I college soccer career and her decision to transition away from law school to follow her passion in the world of health and wellness. Lauren also shares what she calls a very difficult relationship with food and exercise and how common eating disorders are in the diabetes community. We then shift the conversation to her entry into the world of nutrition, yoga, and meditation, and how that helped her transition from being unrealistic at times and very hard on herself to following a path to a more balanced and healthy life. Lauren believes this has allowed her to become more comfortable in her own skin, and that it has positively impacted her energy and clarified her mind so she can better connect with the people around her. This is a conversation of digging in deep, doing the hard work, and learning as much about yourself as possible so you can make your greatest impact on the world around you. Now, Lauren is a perfect example of how we can take the diagnosis of diabetes, fight through life's speed bumps, and then turn the volume up on our inner voice to allow our purpose to truly shine through. She's super energetic, and her mission is to help bring joy to the people around her. When you listen to Lauren, it's obvious she not only talks about how to live a better life, she truly walks the walk. I had a great time meeting Lauren and talking to her about her story, and I know you guys will enjoy this episode. And with that, I bring you my conversation with Lauren Bongiorno. Awesome. So Lauren, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We're here in New York City together, and we're in Midtown, right? It's beautiful windows here, and you're from New York, I'm from New York, so I figured we would just sit down together and get to know each other and really learn a little bit about your history, and then also get to know more about what you're doing in terms of your fitness career and all the wonderful things you're doing for the diabetes community as well. So thank you so much for coming in.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is awesome. So I'm really excited to dig into this with you, primarily because your corner of the diabetes wellness universe has really been of significant interest to me, specifically the yoga and the meditation component of it. And I know we're going to talk a lot about that today. It's been of interest to me for well over 2 decades, believe it or not. And I can share with you my story at some point if it's really of interest to you. But But your name originally came up with in a conversation I had with a mutual friend, Eric Tozer. And I know that you're part of the Diabetes Sports Project. You're one of his athletes, one of the athletes that participates in the Diabetes Sports Project. And aside from that, it's kind of hard not to know you because you're all over social media. Every day you're posting great things. I love Instagram, so you're posting great pictures of the things you're eating, mindfulness stuff, and just the yoga is amazing. And you even have your weekly meditation kind of Instagram live, which is awesome. So
yeah,
thanks for being here today. So
yeah, I'm excited to dig in deeper.
Awesome. So I'll start off with a question that I like to ask all of my guests to this point, because I think it really sets the stage for our entire conversation today. So I'm always interested to learn about a guest's childhood, because I know that that really tells a lot about who you are as an adult. So without diving too much into your diagnosis story just yet, because I really want to talk about that too. Mm-hmm. What were you like as a kid?
As a kid, and it's so funny that you say that, because I think that, you know, if you're going to parallel childhood with adulthood, or really just anything that you do in life, I always say the way you do one thing is, I think, the way that you do everything. So there's a lot of crossovers within that. So for me, I was a pretty fearless child. I think still to this day, I'm very fearless. Like when I was in Florence, Italy, studying abroad in college, I was, you know, I jumped out of a plane. I signed, I think, like a consent form in all Italian where I couldn't even read Italian. Like I have this like no fear just mentality about me. And I think it really does, you know, stem all the way back to childhood. Like I just remember being like, especially because I was an athlete as a child playing soccer. So just really hardcore and yeah, fearless.
So who convinced you to jump out of the plane?
It was all my idea. I think what happened was my parents told me, Lauren, don't do anything when you go over there that you wouldn't want us to know about. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to jump out of a plane.
So the phone call comes, Mom and Dad, guess what?
Yeah, it was afterwards. It was after. My boyfriend was coming over for his 21st birthday. And I was like, I'm going to surprise him and push him out of a plane with me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So just as an aside, did you have any concerns whatsoever about, so you're up in the plane, blood sugar components of this? Like if you're free falling and all of a sudden you get hypoglycemic?
Yeah, to be honest, that it never crossed my mind.
Gotcha. So just to back up the story just a little bit, from what I understand, you were diagnosed at the age of 7 with type 1, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So
maybe you can walk me through a little bit of the days leading up to, if you can remember, and then kind of your diagnosis story.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed November 1st, so the day after Halloween, which of course for a lifetime you're stuck with the jokes of, oh, you ate too much Halloween candy, so that's why you have diabetes. But anyways, I think for the weeks leading up to it, I even remember I had this one specific picture, and it was a school picture, and I remember we have it in my house, and I look so just like my skin, like just so pale. I was so underweight, and I think leading up to those weeks, my mom knew something was off, like she's all cranky and everything like that. And I just remember being upstairs on November 1st. It was the afternoon, and my mom being on the phone with my dad saying, we have to take her, I have to take her. Something's not right. I'm going to take her right now. And I remember that piece. And then I remember being in the doctor's office and my mom crying after they took my blood. And then the doctor saying, you better call your husband, tell him to meet you at the hospital. And it was all kind of like pieces. I don't remember all of it together. Sure. And then I remember being at the hospital. And then when you get to the hospital, I just remember being there for 3 days with everybody bringing me balloons and bears, a lot of sugar-free Jell-O from the nurses. That was like, I'm scarred. I have like an aversion to Jell-O. So that was, it's similar to a lot of people's, I think, diagnosis. If you're a child, it's something that maybe you don't remember all of it, but you just definitely remember certain pieces. I remember a lot of crying around me, and I didn't understand. I wasn't crying. I didn't understand, I don't think, what diabetes meant. Yeah,
that was my question, is did you even have a concept of what it meant really at that point? Because you're 7 years old, I don't think that I would have been able to completely understand what that, even your parents probably didn't completely understand what that meant, and that's probably why they were so upset.
Oh my gosh, no, my parents had, no idea. I mean, like I was telling you before, I grew up in an Italian household, so there was lots of kind of, unhealthy, quote unquote, unhealthy foods, but Sure. We did eat. I was an athlete, like my parents didn't keep a lot of junk food in the house. We had a lot of fresh food, so they don't understand if like they caused it. We don't have anybody in our family with diabetes. And I just remember there was this one instance where we got home from the hospital, and my dad and my parents were both trying to figure out, what do you do when she's low and what do you do when she's high and all of this. So I remember being high and my dad just taking me outside and having me run this giant hill up and down, just like running. Or if I had like pizza, he would just be like, all right, we're doing laps, like we're doing it. And he would be running up and down. And then there was this one time, the first time I went low in public. So we were at a Italian restaurant right in Comac, Emilio's, and I remember I didn't understand the feeling. I guess I wasn't used to the feeling of being low, so I just remember being really shaky, and just while we were waiting for a table, just sitting like in the middle of the floor, like in the, by the where the person is that, takes your name and whatever. And there's tons of people around, and just sitting and just not understanding how to like vocalize what I was feeling. And my dad, he just got so scared. He literally, I just remember seeing him looking up. I was looking up at him, and he asked the guy for, I think, pizza or a Coke or something. And the guy said like 1 second or something like that. And my dad, he just jumped over the counter and was like, my daughter's a diabetic. I need to get, the pizza. And there was like it was a whole scene, a whole thing. So we always joke about that, like now, like thinking about, like how dramatic it must have looked. And I mean, I think I was like in the 60s, but I just like didn't understand like, how to deal with those lows or how to communicate that. And my parents didn't really understand how to, in the beginning, deal with those, either.
Sure. So what was the support network like? So look, I know when I was diagnosed, I was in a hospital situation, but there's a lot of misinformation. Some people, most healthcare providers are very well-meaning, and they want to make sure they're giving you the right information. But a lot of times we're kind of left to fend for ourselves, right? And there wasn't an internet per se back then that has the information that it has now. Where did the support network come from? Who did you guys turn to? Who did your parents turn to?
So it was a lot of self-education. My parents were both, I have an awesome supportive family. So even like my grandparents, like my aunt and uncle, my cousins, they all kind of, it was a team effort. And as you know, it's not just the person with diabetes that is affected, but it's everybody.
Of course.
And the family. And so my dad, he, bought like every book on diabetes and, contacted people who he knew. One time I heard this person say something about diabetes, and it wasn't really, I was paying half attention, but I remember because it wasn't affecting me, but then he would go and ask them about it and,
Sure.
Share my diagnosis. And it's an interesting point that you bring up, though, because I feel that when my parents were diagnosed, like they thought like, okay, this is all the information that there is. Like whatever the doctors are telling me is like all the information there is.
Yeah.
But then like, I know we're going to get into it a little bit later, but I'm, I, as a diabetic health coach, I have people come to me at kind of, a lot of times their lowest state with their A1Cs are out of control. They're looking to, take control of their diabetes basically. And I'll, just sometimes I say just, things, I'll just go over things that, just in a brief way. I'll just say in a passing statement, I'll say something and they'll be like, wait, like I never knew that. And
Yeah.
it's something like as simple as like, oh, caffeine like spikes your blood sugar, like something as simple as that, right? Like, oh, but for this caffeine, like, did you give insulin for it? Because of blah, 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 like, I would go fast through it. And then they'd be like, wait, what? Like, I've never been told
That
like
just
to give
completely opens up a
caffeine.
door for them.
Yeah. And then it's like, I just feel like if like somebody was, if I was diagnosed now, like I would be so frustrated, like knowing the things that I know now, like I'd be so frustrated because there's just so much, like so many things that can help more than just as what is given.
No doubt. I definitely want to dive into the health coaching aspect of your life also, because that's clearly a very important part of your world. You said something about your dad and it making you literally run hills when your blood sugars were high. Did your doctors encourage your parents, if you can recall, or maybe did they encourage them to not allow you to take chances, like be careful of playing sports, be careful of doing things that the quote unquote normal kid would do, right? And kind of held you back? Or were they more like, no, go do everything that you can possibly do, no boundaries, no limits whatsoever?
I don't know exactly the conversation between the doctors, my parents. I just know that my parents, the way they raised me was diabetes isn't going to stop you from anything. You are not, the saying, you are not a diabetic, you have diabetes. Sure. But even so much to the point where I was just telling somebody the other day, like when I realized like my purpose was to help other diabetics take control of their health, I had a very hard time just like saying I was a diabetic health coach, because to me that meant that I'd have to take ownership that like this is this is who I am. I'm a diabetic. But then once I got over that whole just like the ego thing and mostly just like the self-esteem and becoming, strong in my core and knowing myself and knowing that this is my path and I have to get over that. Then it was, straightforward, and I was able to, I'm able to help so many people. But it really comes down to the fact that my whole entire life, I was taught by my parents, do not identify as a diabetic. You don't need to. You can do everything. Like I'd have friends for, a year, people would know me in school and high school, and they'd find out I had diabetes and be like, what? Be like, yeah, it's just this thing I have. Like, it's not a big deal. Meanwhile, I was up like the night before, like 20 times, like, cause I had highs and lows and all of this stuff. But
Sure.
you don't want that to affect you. And that's, I think, what they instilled in me.
Yeah, so you're quietly fighting that battle in the background and putting on a brave face when you enter the world the next day. So you touched upon a little bit before the fact that you were an athlete as a child. So do you, and you were a soccer player from what I read in your bio. Do you think that you had a different mindset towards sports because of the diabetes?
I think that recently I discovered that there's this reoccurring theme in my life of needing to be perfect or needing to prove myself to other people through my accomplishments. And I think that could happen to anybody, regardless of if you have diabetes or not. But for me specifically, I think it stems from just the notion of you have diabetes equals you are not perfect. That's what I told myself, or at least subconscious. I think it was very subconscious. And to me, it was something that, later on in life, everything I did, it was to prove to other people that I'm not diabetes and I'm just as good as anybody else. And so getting to play Division I soccer in college, it was like this. It was this just everything to me. It was my whole entire life. That's all I focused on because I needed to prove I couldn't be Division II, couldn't be Division III. It needed to be Division I because I couldn't let people down. I had to prove myself. And then I'm in such a state right now in my life, which we'll get more into, I bet, but that I let go of that. Like when you need to prove yourself to somebody else, or when you need to be perfect or need to show your list of accomplishments to determine like your self-worth, like then there's an imbalance going on there.
No doubt. Yeah, and there's a tremendous amount of stress and pressure that we put on ourselves when we're dealing with a chronic illness or a chronic condition such as diabetes or anything that's chronic. Is there's this nonstop belief that if we're not within the lines, that we've let ourselves down, we've let somebody else down. And that's hard to break sometimes, though, especially when you have a type A perfectionist type of a personality.
Mm-hmm.
So you played Division I in soccer in college, and you made it through the college years. What happened post-college? Was wellness always the plan for you, or when did that kind of come into the picture?
Oh man, no. I was looking at law schools. I took my LSATs twice. I sat through that test. This was a total blessing in disguise. My health journey, I guess you can say, I kind of look at it through a few different phases. The first phase one happened through college, where I didn't feel complete. I didn't feel whole in myself. I didn't know who I was. I was lost. I was, at college and the diabetes thing, and, not understanding, the impact of moving away. I went to North Carolina for school, and I was really close to my family. So I missed them. I missed my family, and I turned to food. Right. So I turned to food, and I had this extreme restriction because I thought that if I could control my diabetes numbers, if I can control every carb, fat, and protein that went into my body, I knew exactly what it was, and I knew exactly where the foods were coming from, and they were organic, and they were this and that, then I would be happy, and I would be full, and I would be thriving. And that was my definition of like healthy. I had a bad relationship with exercise. I was an over-exerciser at the time. That was my pattern. And so it was a very restrictive mindset. And to be honest, I had a 5.7 A1C at that time. So
Wow.
You look at that on paper and say, wow, Lauren, you did good. Good job. Like, pat on the back, 5.7 A1C. You're really under control. But really, I look back at it now, and it was one of the most unhealthy times of my life. I was underweight. I was undernourished. I was moody. I wasn't happy. I had anxiety around like a number that wasn't, perfect. And then the second phase was, after I went out of college, I went to this I need to find balance in my life, right? You hear balance everywhere. Balance, you got to have balance. Have pizza, but then have, kale salad for the next day, like all of that. And so it was great. I had balance, but it was not great because I had a restrict binge pattern. So it would be, all right, I'll be good Monday through Friday. And then Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, just eat ice cream, eat the pasta, eat the, everything. And then I'd feel sluggish, and the whole cycle would start over on Monday again. And so going through those years after college, when I decided to go to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to become a health coach, I was in a yoga class. To backtrack, I was in a yoga class basically my senior year, spring semester. So this was like I was applying to law schools.
Sure.
And I was in a yoga class. I had been teaching yoga and exercise there at this in the community in North Carolina. And I just had this epiphany that, wow, you know what? Like, I don't want to go to law school. Like, I think I'd be great at it, but there's such a place in my heart for like health and wellness and nutrition. And even though at the time I didn't find that with myself, I wasn't in my senior year of college like the healthiest I've ever been, like looking back now and compared to where I am now, it's still, I knew I was passionate about it. I had a blog at the time and it was like, let me just write all the blog posts before I get to the LSAT homework kind of thing. So that was, yeah.
So I don't want to brush over something because there was something that's pretty deep that you said embedded in all of that. It sounds like there was the relationship that you had with food was an unhealthy one, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
How common is that within the diabetes community?
So common that I literally can get emotional just talking about it, because I have so many clients, so many people that come to me. I don't think I've ever cried on a podcast before. I have so many clients that come to me, and it's just like this helpless, like, relationship with themselves and trying to so hard control, like use food as a control. And it's the more you control it, it's almost kind of like, you know, when you take a key that doesn't fit in a hole and you're just like trying to like put it in and you're trying to like make it fit, but it's not fitting and you're getting frustrated. Like, why isn't this fitting? And then you realize like, oh, this is the wrong key. Well, that's how I kind of see it, is like, you think in your head, a lot of these, you know, all of us at one point have in our head this kind of blueprint of things that people have told us and the way that we think things should go. And then when we try it, it's not working. It's just like, I'm a failure, or why can't I make this work? But really, you just need a different key, right? You just need a different approach. And so.
But I think that happens for every single person.
Yeah.
Really, in different degrees, though. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, and that's a great point. And it is to different degrees. So I have some people that are, and I don't love talking about this because I think it brings a bigger attention to the issue, but diabulimia, where you're eating and you're, you know, want to lose weight, so you're not giving insulin for your food. And I've had a handful of people who I've worked with through that. And that's a tough one, because it's tough to when you're in it, but when you're in it and you feel like depressed and you're so upset with yourself, like doing it more, like, doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't help the underlying issues. And that's what it's all about for me. It's like, let's get to the root and figure out like what makes you the fullest and happiest you can be. So if you look at my Instagram account, like, I talk about diabetes very sparingly, very rarely. And I have a ton of, you know, type 1s and type 2s that follow me. But for me, what's more important is that I'm sharing my journey as a whole person, right? So the meditation, the healthy eating, the relationships, like with my family or with my boyfriend, like all of these things are what make you happy and whole.
Sure.
And then when you're happy in all these different areas, like, then you just, you know, life gets easier and life gets happier, because your idea of what your reality should be is the expectations. You're meeting them.
Yeah, the unfortunate reality, I think, for a lot of us when we're managing diabetes, is that it really all boils down to the number. We simplify it. It's all down to, okay, if I can even look at my Dexcom as we're talking, it's like, okay, where am I at right now?
Yeah.
And then a lot of times your mood is dictated by where the number is at for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is that we have to learn to let go of that a little bit.
Yeah, and I have this kind of theory thing, and what I really believe is that you have to have control, right? I'm not preaching here like, let your blood sugar go to like 300s, 200s,
Sure.
like after you meal, like who cares, like whatever. That's like letting go completely. But what I think is that you're doing the best that you can, right? And you're trying to control the things that you can control, and then you're letting go of the things that, you just can't control. Like, when you're, when you're in the middle of the night, if your Omnipod or your pump comes out or something, some just random things like that. Like, those are the times that you need to then you figure out, okay, like, this is the way my brain works. It's, okay, my blood sugar is over 200, like 180, 200, like, all right, let's first fix it. How do we get down the fastest we can? I'm on an Omnipod, but if I'm high, like I take shots a lot of the times because I think the absorption is so much quicker. So one is fix the problem. So that's step one. Then step two is, okay, once I'm better, how can we evaluate what went wrong, right? Because when you can identify the problem, then you could fix it for next time. So I have a preventative approach rather than a reactive approach. And a lot of people are just go throughout the day, have highs and lows. And at the end of the day, they're like, oh, well, I'm a horrible person because, I had so many highs. We'll try again tomorrow. But when you don't reflect and slow down and look at all these things, then it's impossible to take control over.
Sure. So the lesson there is control the controllable, be gentler with yourself, be kinder to yourself, and then evaluate and figure out how to do it better the next time.
Yeah, and not attaching yourself,
Yeah.
letting go of that attachment to that number.
So let's talk about a couple of different things here, because it sounds like your personal story in wellness has three specific elements to it. The yoga is a very important part, and that was kind of the core in your introduction to the world of wellness. Made you completely shift gears from the standard law track that a lot of people are on, and that kick started your running in a completely different direction. Meditation also serves as another core of what you're about, and the nutrition. So I want to kind of dive into all three of those. We did a little bit about the yoga here for a second, but I want to talk about the yoga just for one more second. One particular question that's kind of coming to mind. So when you started practicing yoga, talk to me about what you started to see with your blood sugars and your overall physiology.
So for me, I am and if you're familiar with this, I guess I can use it in this term. So in Ayurveda, it's a type of, Indian medicine, and basically I'm a pitta. So you have these, without getting too deep into, you have these doshas, right? Your makeup, your genetic makeup. And I like to I'm a pitta dosha. So everybody has a certain level of like water, all these elements. So water, air, fire, earth, all these different things. And I'm primarily made up of fire. So fire and water. So I'm very heated. And I like to say, there's a different way of calling everything. Some people might call it like a type A personality. And I find that a lot of people that I work with and a lot of diabetics are pitta doshas or type A. Yeah, Craig's waving to me for those who can't see him. So personality, type A personality. And I was like a perfectionist and let me go to a hot yoga class, let me go run 1,000 miles and, do it in the 95-degree weather kind of person. And so for me in the beginning, it was a lot of, I think it was a lot of hot, heated classes, and I didn't understand that wasn't the type of yoga that maybe always served me. And while I love that kind of things, because that's what I love doing things that challenge my body, I also needed the stuff that I do now, which is a lot of grounding yoga and then the meditation aspect of it. But in the beginning stages when I first started yoga, one thing that I realized is that it helped me just for the first time get in touch with myself, to understand really why I did the things that I did and how to really bring happiness into my life by like letting go of the things that didn't serve me. And that counts as like thoughts, that counts as people, that counts as events or organizations I was a part of that just weren't serving me. And so even though it didn't have a direct correlation obviously you can say, okay, you go to your yoga class, you're exercising, your blood sugar is going to be like most of the time positively impacted,
Sure.
right? Like that's the obvious. But the thing that's not so obvious is the other things that are going to affect your wanting to take control of your body. So I would go to a yoga class and I would sweat or I'd feel good and then I'd come out. I'm not like going to grab a Big Mac. Like I'm going to grab like a green juice or like something that was nourishing for my body. So I think, as a side effect, it brought happiness and awareness. And that for the first time in my life, I understood the connection of slowing down and understanding like my mind and my body and what that meant to connect the two of them.
So is there a specific school of yoga that you're more fond of now that you feel connects more with you as a person, that you do more than any of the others? Because there's a lot of different types and flavors of yoga.
Yeah. So I just make sure to balance myself. I really enjoy a hot power flow kind of class, challenging myself. But I mean, if you don't have the connection of the mind and the breath to it, you're just doing gymnastics. Like that's
That's actually
really
the
what
next
it is.
question there, because most people see yoga as a physical endeavor.
Yes.
Until you kind of get deeper into it,
Yes.
which there's definitely a component of the physicality, no doubt. And look, some of the strongest people that I know are into yoga. But yoga has a great deal more to do with the breath and developing the mind. So talk to me a little bit about how yoga, you said it grounded you, but how did it change your mind a little bit? You know, aside from the just calming you down a little bit, how did you view the world differently?
Yeah. So I think that for me, actually, my first 2 years of practicing yoga, I don't think I did like any arm balance, inversion, anything. It was like just I like the
Which
way
if
it
you
made
look
me
at your
feel.
if you look at your Instagram account, which is the thing that strikes me more than anything, is that there's tons of kind of like handstands and balancing. Look, I'm in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough stuff, and it
And
takes you years to develop
years.
So I'm not gonna. Maybe you could teach me after the podcast. You can.
Perfect.
Don't laugh though.
No, never. No judgment.
So I'm sorry.
But
Continue.
yeah, no. So I think that, and what was your question? We got such
Really, how it changed your outlook on the world?
outlook on the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understood myself before yoga as this person that needed to achieve, that needed to accomplish, just like we were talking before, in order to be seen or be heard, right? I wanted to be acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because of the diabetes thing. And so the more I took yoga, the more I felt good after class, and the more I would lay in Shavasana and be like I'm whole, like I'm complete on my own. And I think the key for this, and for anybody listening who is interested in getting into yoga or has, is just starting their journey or never took a class before, I think it's super important to find a teacher that you connect with, because there are a ton of teachers out there. It's kind of like a flavor of ice cream, right? You can't like say like, oh, to a person who's never had ice cream, like ice cream's so good, and then give them like a flavor that they hate, like they're going to be turned off by it. Like you have to try a little bit different flavors kind of thing.
Sure.
So you have to find a teacher that connects with you and speaks, I think, to your soul, and like is giving a message that you need to hear. And so for me, I had this one teacher who I'm very good friends with, JJ, and he actually, his big thing was, do not let what you do or not accomplish determine your self-worth. And I think that's important, is that that's what it all comes back down that's what it comes back down to for me.
Sure. So the next step in that, and look, yoga is basically meditation in motion more than anything, right? Meditation has played a big role in my life for 20 plus years, in one form or another. And I understand it from a scientific perspective and the brain science. And I think that that's really, really important. And that's the angle that I got into yoga from.
Okay.
Not yoga, sorry, meditation. But did the meditation kind of just flow out of the yoga for you? So how did the meditation really enter the picture for you?
Yeah. So you caught me at a time that's like, I'm very, very into meditation right now, but I've been a teacher for past, 4 years and taking yoga, practicing for the past 6 years. And I just recently started getting into meditation, and it is so incredible. Like I think I would try, and I'd just be like, Shavasana. Okay, I meditated for 5 minutes, but like that's not, you have to intentionally like set aside time and meditate. And it is just, so you came in from the scientific, I guess, point of it. I came in really from the energetic point of it, right? So I wanted to get to this place where my energy was, so just open, and my mind was clear, so that like everything that needs to flow through me can flow through me, so I can better connect with people around me. I think connection is, for me, something that's very high up on my list of needs. Like I want to help, I want to serve, I want to, and I think I want to do those things, and I think you need to connect with people, and you need to let your purpose kind of come through you. I think every single person has a purpose, in this life, and I think that if you're, unhappy, if you're unhappy with what you're doing or your job or your career, like, I don't know why, like, I don't consider my diabetic health coaching. Like, I don't even call it like a career or a job, because those two words sound so just like lifeless to me. I don't know why. I think it's because, so many years you hear like, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? Like a doctor, a lawyer, just like all those traditional things. Like, I feel like what I'm doing is like my life's purpose. Like, I feel like the question should be like, what do you do for your life's purpose? Like,
Sure.
instead of like, what do you do for your career? Because it's like, I want that to bring everybody joy, and I want everybody to be able to express that, because diabetes becomes very overwhelming if you're not happy in other areas of your life, because then you start to feel pity for yourself, or you have anxiety, and then it all falls on diabetes, because then your numbers go out of whack because you're not taking care of your health, and it's all interconnected.
So what does your meditation practice look like now?
Yeah. So right now, for me personally, a lot of people say that they like morning times to start their day fresh. I prefer movement in the morning because I'm most awake and energized in the morning time.
It's your personality type.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I get all the fire going in the morning. And then something that's really important to me is kind of really taking time in the evening for myself. So as somebody who's, in my own business, there's been nights where I've, woken up at 6, started working, and went to bed at 12 and work. And there's plenty of people that do that. But for me personally, I know that if I continued on that path, like I've had 2 anxiety, or kind of like anxiety attacks, like I guess in my life. And I never even thought I had anxiety until somebody, like my dad, was like, no, like that was an anxiety attack when you can't breathe. And I was like crying and I couldn't catch my breath. And it really comes from times that I overwhelm myself with a lot of things, because I want to do everything. I want to do everything at once, and I want to be, accomplish and do things. And I think that in the long run, that burns you out. So that's where I'm coming to my own definition now in the past few months of what balance is for me. And I'm starting to re-identify compared to where my old balance was restrict binge with food. Now it's like find balance in kind of grounding and also, being my fiery self and having those 2 elements. So I kind of like look at myself as, in yoga, there's a pose called the peaceful warrior. Right. And so it's this warrior that's so strong, right? You're grounded, you're rooted in your beliefs and in who you are in your core, and you're not broken, you're whole, but then you're peaceful in your approach. So you're being mindful, and you're not shoving, like we said before, that key into that hole that doesn't fit. You're taking time to wind down and take care of your body. So
I listen to a lot of guided meditations. That helps me through, and I've kind of traveled the world through kind of progressive muscle relaxation, mindfulness-based stress reduction. That's more of kind of the science-based side of stuff.
Yeah.
But I've always had this question as I'm listening to these guided meditation sessions. So as the person who is actually leading the guided meditation, are you guiding yourself through when you're meditating by yourself? Are you thinking about that as you're going through?
So I actually prefer being guided as well. So there's an
Gotcha.
awesome studio in New York called Mindful, and they have, in-person people, instructors that instruct you. And I love that. Same thing. Like I love leading myself through a yoga class, but I prefer to actually be led by somebody else, just so you can take the thinking out of it a little bit. But while I'm by myself at nighttime, I haven't found, and if you have, I want to create one. And I know we might record a meditation after this.
Yeah, we're going to do that after. Just for everybody who's listening, I had asked Lauren to grace us with her wonderful voice and and do a guided meditation for us. That's actually going to be in a follow-up episode, which I know everybody's going to really enjoy. And she's actually going to guide me through meditation here as we're recording. Because I've got a lot of stress in my day today, so
yes.
So we're gonna do that. But yeah, so if you said you're thinking about creating something, or that's kind of a thought in your mind.
Yeah, because I haven't found an app or anything that I really love. Like I've tried, I'm not going to name them, but I've tried a bunch of them because they're like popular, but I'm like, I don't feel anything. Like this isn't like, I'm distracted by the voice. It doesn't feel like what I need. It's just kind of like the yoga instructor thing. You have to find somebody that like speaks to you. Yeah. So for me, I do a lot of the way I've been meditating lately is, which I thought was so just like woo woo, but like I have like stones and crystals, and like each one is good for, a certain chakra. And the chakras are basically energy centers throughout your body, and there's 7 main ones that run up and down straight. And I really have been working through the chakras and working from the ground up on finding opening in all of these different areas. And so I usually meditate there's 3 ways I usually meditate. One on the breath, so creating samavriti, which is equal inhale, equal exhale. And that usually is just to generally clear my mind. So breathing in for 5, exhaling for 5, maybe going up till 10 kind of thing for 5 minutes. Another thing I'll do is meditate on a visualization. So possibly, let's say I was working on the sacral chakra, the second chakra. That's your chakra for flexibility and movement and your ability to not be so stuck in, what you want to control, but to be fluid. And so I might visualize, my saying, my mantra might be like, I am fluid or I am flexible. And I might repeat that to myself with every inhale. With every exhale, let it go. And then I might picture just like a stream, right? Or water, or something fluid. Just as an example.
That's so great. Yeah, I think that there's been kind of this thought of meditation and mindfulness that it's very kind of like hippie. Let's go up on the mountaintop and sit cross-legged and chant and all of that. But the wonderful thing is that that meditation in general has really come into its own. There's a lot of commercial components to it now that maybe some people fight against. I kind of think it's great because I don't think there's anything wrong with more people meditating, right? So that's awesome. So I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about your nutrition, because this all kind of falls into your whole being. So you're super active, you're working out yourself, you're teaching classes, you're running around, you're an entrepreneur. Fuel is very important for anybody, but when it comes to someone who's active who's also working with type 1 diabetes, the needs can be different at times. So what does a typical day of nutrition look like for you?
Yeah. So right now, currently, like I said, I've been actually a pescatarian since I was 16. So for a while, I've only, eat fish. Not only eat fish, but the only animal, I guess I don't eat land meat. I eat fish. And I stay away from majority of the time dairy, just because my body with anything like butter or yogurt or milk, I can feel, my digestion doesn't feel great. It's just, I can actually feel like the inflammation in my body, especially, being someone who's so active, like my joints. Sometimes when if I have a lot of cheese or things like that, I'll wake up after a few days of eating it and my, fists, like I actually have to I'm like, wait, there's something going on here. So I try to limit my dairy. And I limit mostly my artificial sugars. And when I say limit, it's not like a restriction thing. Like if I go to a party or something, or if it's, celebration once in a while, I'm going to have those things. But for the most part, I really try to fuel my body with whole foods. Breakfast for me is usually either, some kind of, smoothie or oatmeal. Recently I've added back in some eggs and I feel really good with those. I feel fueled and I stay full with the healthy fats in the morning, and I'll have that with some fruit or on some Siete Foods. That's a good brand. They have some almond flour tortillas that I put them on. So those are awesome. So I'll have that, and then sometimes I'll have a mid-morning snack. Usually if I work out around 9 o'clock, I'll come and have a protein shake afterwards. And then lunch for me is always a really big salad. So I feel like I need a volume in the middle of the day, and it has to be nutritious. So it's usually tuna or salmon over a roasted vegetables or a big salad. That's generally, I know that's what works well for my body. Not saying that I don't sometimes deviate from that, but I know if I deviate from that, then in the afternoon I'll be really, really hungry again, and I'll be more likely to snack on some things that I'm probably not best for my body.
Sure.
And then late afternoon, I'll usually have another snack, usually an apple and peanut butter, carrots and hummus, that kind of thing, or maybe even a snack bar. And then dinner time is usually, I love Mexican, so I love guac and beans and rice and quinoa and, peppers, anything along that nature. Maybe a healthy pizza, a cauliflower crust pizza with just vegetables and sauce or something like that.
So it sounds like you have a really healthy relationship with food now, though, because it sounds like you're listening to your body. You're figuring out what works, what doesn't work. You're not beating yourself up if something didn't work. You're just kind of moving on and saying, okay, I made a mistake. And you'll probably end up doing it again at some point, right? Because we're only human. but the reality is that it sounds like you have a much healthier relationship with food that you've worked through over the years to fuel yourself. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was a slave to food. It was stressful for me to like decide what to eat because I didn't understand what I should be eating, or like if this was good or if that is good, and I can't eat that because it has like a tiny bit of sugar in it and all of these things. And as of last week, actually, I found out I'm allergic to wheat. So I know it's, a lot of people with diabetes have celiacs, and I don't think
my watch just told me to breathe, so I'm going to breathe.
Oh, I want to breathe with you. Let's do it. Ready? Deep inhale through the nose. And exhale, side out.
Feels so much better already.
Love that.
Awesome. So let's actually talk about that, because you just coached me through something. So you've combined your love of sports, yoga, meditation, nutrition, and as you mentioned before, you're a health coach. So let's start really simple, because coaching is a very hot kind of thing nowadays. What does it exactly mean to be a health coach, and what do you offer your clients?
So I'm the guide. I bridge the gap between where you currently are and where you want to be. It's as simple as that. So I use basically what I give to you is guidance, I give you support, and I give you accountability. And with those three things, you will 100% achieve your goals. And we break them down and we build up through the weeks to get to where you want to be. So a lot of common goals for people that I work with are increased insulin sensitivity for weight loss, better lower A1C, more stable, predictable blood sugar numbers.
And you're working with type 1, type 2
I
diabetes.
primarily work with type 1s.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I have a handful of type 2s and even a handful of pre-diabetics that they're border type 2, and we get their A1Cs down lower. And so it's basically just working on those things and looking at all the different areas.
So when you're first interviewing a new client, what are the most common triggers you hear from them, why they contacted you in the first place?
Mm-hmm. So mostly they've tried everything. Their blood sugars are just so out of control. They don't know how to get them, under control. Under control. They're waking up higher, or they don't understand why they're eating something and their blood sugars are going high. Or maybe they do have an understanding and maybe they just need help on honing in and focusing and making it their priority. A lot of times it's how to work out with managing your blood sugars, right? Not having those lows, not having those highs. And I really feel that, like, yes, it is, me and what I'm guiding them to a degree, but what a lot of it is just like when you focus on anything and make it your priority to say, okay, Lauren, I want to sign up for this, 6-month program with you. I'm making you focus, right? Like you have homework in between your sessions, and like it's a priority, and that's your focus, and you're going to succeed at that. And that's what happens a lot of times is like with diabetes, I feel like sometimes we get desensitized to it. And so it's just like we go day in and day out, and because it's to us this whole lifetime of, living with this. And it's like, if you just stop and you say, okay, I want to figure out what's going on here and break everything down, then even though it's going to take some time to focus and prioritize on that, it's going to help you tenfold in the future because, it's like anything. You have to slow down and you have to focus on it so that you can be healthier moving forward.
So feeding off of that, and this is a question that I've asked a number of guests so far, what do you feel is most important or impactful, intrinsic motivation or extrinsic motivation?
Intrinsic.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
I thought it was hard at first because I think motivation from the outside is you're depending on somebody else, or you're depending on something else. Like, why would you want to, for me, I wouldn't want to do that. I want to be intrinsically motivated. I want to know that I'm in a routine and it's not only motivation. I don't know if I love that word. I think habit is so much more powerful because motivation is like sporadic. Like I've been working out like consistently for 7-8 years. And I most of the time don't wake up like super, super motivated to go to the gym, like super, super motivated, what people call motivation. I wake up and I get myself there because of habit, because I know this is what I do. I'm going to feel great afterwards. And then when I'm in it, I feel amazing and I feel terrific. But life gets busy. It's not all meditation classes and yoga. There's work and there's, situations and there's relationships to take care of. There's all these things. And yeah. So
how do we actually find the time to take care of ourselves then? If we're dealing with all of these other aspects of our life, the normal day-to-day, the family, the job, ventures that we might be pursuing at that time. Now we add on the different layers of health issues that we might be. How do we find the time to take care of ourselves?
Yeah. So what I really believe is that a lot of times we think if we can't do it all, then we shouldn't do any of it. So if we can't go to the meditation studio, or if we can't go on this like yoga retreat for 7 days in Bali, then like that's it. We are, we'll wait till next year. Like we'll start in 2018 January kind of thing. Like just start with what you can do in little steps so that your body starts to feel the benefits of it. And it's kind of like food for me a little bit. Like this meditation thing, like why I've started to get so much into it is because I'm feeling the benefits of it. And I've never felt it before because I wasn't really like doing anything about it. Like I would try here and there, but not really. So for instance, for somebody who's really busy and like, let's say they work a traditional, 9 to 5 and they have a long commute or something like that, like just dedicate yourself to what you think that you can do. So like make your goal on Sunday night. Okay, my goal for this week is to take out 10 minutes, right? Like in the morning, set my alarm clock 10 minutes earlier, maybe 2 times a week, right? It doesn't have to be 5 or 7 days a week. It can be 1 time a week if that's more than what you're doing now. And just start there and create kind of a practice for yourself. And it's going to look different for everybody. It doesn't have to look like somebody else's. You don't have to, like I said, go to a studio or do it like somebody on Instagram. Like just find what's going to bring you happiness. And maybe that's meditation. Maybe it's having your coffee outdoors. Maybe it's going for a walk around your neighborhood to get in touch with nature and like just life and the universe. Like whatever it is, just make some time for that. A little bit more than what you're doing currently. And then it'll kind of be like a snowball effect, or at least that's how I felt like it's been in my life.
That's great advice. So are there, what percentage of your clients would you say you start to introduce concepts of yoga and meditation to?
Yeah, so it's really crazy. In the beginning, when I started health coaching, it wasn't even like part of really my plan. It was kind of how I saw myself as like, okay, health coach, like that's like nutrition and, just diabetes numbers and all those kind of things. And yoga is kind of what I do on the side to help me be the best coach that I could be. But then I realized, well, not even that I realized, but my clients, they started asking me, they're like, so like, I want to get into yoga. Like, how do I da-da-da-da-da? And then, I'd be like, wow, like, all right, like people are actually interested in this. Cause to some degree, like, I think I had this like perception that everybody else thought like yoga was kind of, a little, meditation, like was a little outlandish kind of thing.
Sure.
But yeah, so it and a lot of my clients, mostly actually through meditation, I think I've helped them, and I send them like individual voice notes, recordings, instead of sending them to an app, because I think I can more personalize what they need, knowing their background and their story, whether they're dealing with the anxiety or the control issues, the self-esteem, whatever it may be.
That's so great. So I have just a couple more questions for you, if that's okay. So you're planning a few exciting new things coming up in the between now and the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about what you're working on, what you're up to next, and really kind of what's next for Lauren Bongiorno.
Oh, you said that's so nice, so nice. Yeah, no, I'm so excited. I am so excited for what's going on, or what. Not just for me, but what I'm working on creating to help serve people with diabetes. And it's basically things that I wish that there was. Like I'm literally creating some of these products so like I can use them because I'm like, I want to make life easier and I want to achieve results and have other people, achieve their results faster. Like let's say if they couldn't work on with me one-on-one. So I have my individualized coaching where I only take a certain amount of clients at a time because I really give 100% attention to them. And so a lot of the times I'm overbooked and I can't help other people right away. So I wanted to be able to create things for everybody. And so basically I'm going to be coming out with some workout plans, some, recipe guides, meditation, yoga videos. And then one of the biggest things that I'm really excited for is I'm planning a retreat for next July. So it's going to be in Colorado, and it's going to be a long weekend retreat with yoga and meditation and reflection and all of these amazing things in one of my favorite places. So
that's so great. You'll definitely have to let me know when you're starting to launch that, so
yes.
we can definitely promote that through the podcast and the site too.
Awesome, that'd be great.
So you're all over social media, and for those who are not following you at this point, where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, so probably my Instagram. It's just my name. So it's Lauren, LAUREN _ Bongiorno, BONGIORNO. And there's a link to my website there. It's just laurenbongiorno.com. So those are the two main social media platforms that I use for now. So you can find me there.
Yeah, and I'll definitely put a link to that in the show notes as well, so nobody will have to worry about writing out and misspelling your word. So 2 final questions for you. What is the single best piece of advice anyone has ever given you?
Lean into what makes you different.
Awesome. Who gave you that advice?
One of my best friends. Two of my best friends, actually. Alex and Katarina. Shout out to them. They for so long, it was honestly when I was, moving, should I be a diabetic health coach? Should I help people with diabetes, or should I just be a health coach for everyone? Because I think everybody can learn from these things. They're like, why are you running away from diabetes? Like, this is what you were here to do. Just like you in this podcast, right? Like, you were one of I think you called this your passion project. Like, I think it's incredible. Yeah. Like, you were here, like, one of your purposes, I believe, is to create this space to bring people together, to bring that connection, to bring that community together, which, by the way, I have a client who is in New York, and one of the things that he was telling me yesterday was that I just want to find friends also that are just understand me a little bit more on the diabetes side. So I'm going to tell him about your podcast and also maybe have you guys meet.
Awesome. So final question. What does it mean to be brave?
I think what it means to be brave is to not be afraid of failure and not be afraid of obstacles, because I think that both of those things are what make you grow as a person. And I think that's one of the greatest needs that we have as humans, is to grow. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think we did it.
We did it.
Awesome. Lauren, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Oh, it was such a pleasure.
Great conversation. Your energy is infectious, and the impact you're making on the world is undeniable. So I really appreciate everything you're doing, and I appreciate you being here. And you're going to stick around because we're going to do a second very special episode with you. We're going to share some meditation with the world as a little bonus. So thank you. So if you guys are interested in learning more about Lauren Bongiorno or connecting with her, please head over to thebravestlife.com/007. You're 007. That's awesome.
I'm 007. You can call me Bongiorno. Lauren Bongiorno.
Check out all the details on today's show and links to the things we've discussed in the show notes. You'll also find Lauren's social media details in the show notes if you want to connect with her that way. So finally, I want to thank all of you for joining us for this episode of the podcast. And if you like what we're doing, please be sure to share this episode with someone you love. Again, the link for the episode is thebravestlife.com/007. We're also up on iTunes, so please leave an awesome review on what we've done so far. That would be a great place to share some good vibes with anyone impacted by diabetes or anyone just trying to take life head on to create the healthiest version of themselves. Thanks again, everyone. I'm Craig, and we will catch you next time on the Bravest Podcast.